Okay, so this is your first podcast of the year, and it's going to involve a lot of things. We're going to deal with like culture and civilization and how we got to where we are and themes that we're going to use throughout the year. So what is culture? Culture is a unique way of life for people. You have culture, I have culture. How we live our lives, how our families have lived their lives, it's all part of culture. We'll discuss this more when we get into our vocab and dealing with some other ideas with culture. What is a civilization? Civilization is a process by which a society or place reaches an advanced stage of social development. So what gives them advanced stages? Well, obviously a big part of civilization is some kind of hierarchy, government systems, all themes and concepts that will be very important throughout the year. Some kind of social class system, religion fits inside of a civilization. We'll look at advanced civilizations here as we go, like Mesopotamia and Egypt, Indus Valley region, China, and then eventually down the road to more advanced civilizations like our own here in this country. So, some characteristics of the Paleolithic era. This is the old Stone Age. This is hunting and gathering time. This is before civilization really has established itself. So the first thing you have are hunters and gatherers. They are moving with their food. Men and women have some equality, which we'll talk about here in a second. But they're following their food. They're following the seasons. Hunters are looking to sustain their family. It's little tribes. It's little clans. It's small groups. Okay, they are nomadic, which means they move around. As the herd moves, they move. As the seasons change, they move. Water, looking for water, whatever the case may be, they're moving with them. Okay, they are polytheistic. The prefix poly means many. We're looking at religion here, the belief in many gods or many spirits. And you'll see the early ancient civilizations up until really Judaism, you're going to deal with many polytheistic religions. And, you're looking at spirits to guide you as you're hunting and gathering. And then you have gender equality. Men and women are equal here in a hunter and gatherer society. The whole idea is that they're getting food. If the men are hunting, the women are foraging. There is equality there. They both are needed to be successful in this society. So you see a lot of equality. And you're also dealing with what we know as a circle of life time frame. If you look at it, a person does not work on a timeline to the hunter-gathering type quality of people. They are born, they grow, they die, and then there's rebirth. Okay, just like when the sun rises and the sun sets, the moon comes up and the moon goes down. You have this idea that the cycle of life really focused on the woman here, and really the woman's cycle is how people looked at life. Women go through a cycle every month. That's how life is done as well in their eyes. So you have this idea of birth, growth, death, and rebirth. Much, much different than today's society and how we look at things, and also much different from the advanced societies of agricultural societies, which we're going to look at next. Okay, here's some fixtures or figures that were found from this time period. You can see they focus on the woman. The woman's well endowed, a heavier set woman, obviously being a mother who can take care of their child. And that's the whole idea of these pictures, these figures. The breast is a representation of women being able to feed, the larger stomach being able to carry the child, and being able to take care of the child. And that's what these people really focused on. Alright, so this is really 95% of human history that we've gone through is going to be in this Paleolithic, old Stone Age type lifestyle. What we know today is a very, very small percentage of life itself in human advancement. Okay, so let's look at the Neolithic Revolution. Neo meaning new Stone Age, and it's going to focus around agriculture. Alright, so this is the advancement of agriculture. You'll watch the crash course on the agricultural revolution. Will give you more background and why people actually settled down and began to farm. Obviously, it's a need for more food. Okay, and that's the big part here is this need more food to survive. Okay, because of that, people stop being nomadic. They start to settle, and they start to establish themselves in cities, and cities grow into larger civilizations. We'll see this with Mesopotamia, in the city-states of Mesopotamia. We'll see this with the Harappan cities and the Mohenjo-Daro cities of the Indus Valley. We'll see this with Egypt, and obviously with Greece and Rome down the road. But obviously the growth of cities centers around the fact that people do not have to chase their food. Their food is there for them. All right, still polytheistic for the most part, but you also start to see monotheism, mono being the prefix for one. Okay, and that will be Judaism first. Judaism will eventually lead to Christianity, which will eventually lead to Islam, and it will all be focused in the Middle East area, around what is the Mesopotamian area, around the Mediterranean Sea, but for the most part, they're going to stay mainly polytheistic. All right, you're going to start to see conflicts between cities. Well, a big conflict is if one city has food and the other city does not, you got to attack them. All right, so you start to see rivalries. You start to see violence. Okay, think of the Old Testament story of Cain and Abel. You know, Cain and Abel were pastoral and agricultural people. The herder, all right, the herder is going to kill because of that conflict. Also, with issues between pastoral and agricultural societies, this idea that a herder, has to move his herd for them to eat, where the agricultural society will start to put up fences, and you'll have the issues there as herds begin to trample on farmland, and the issues between those two groups. Again, look at Cain and Abel. There's a lot of stories throughout many polytheistic religions, those of Mesopotamia specifically, that have these conflicts between those moving the herd and those who are farming. That is not uncommon throughout history. All right, this is where we start to see it as a male-dominant society. The male will be in charge of religion. The chief, especially in Mesopotamia, the pharaoh in Egypt, the emperor in China, these people will be men, and they will control not only the government, but also the religious aspect of the society. And women become essentially second-class citizens, and be pushed to the side. And it's going to be a growing trend throughout civilization, especially as we get into a much more modern version of monotheistic religion where men are in control. If you look at the early Christian church, you know, it was women. A lot of women were acting as priests, but over time, if we go into the Middle Ages, you'll see that change and again become very, very male-dominated. And that's kind of how the Romans will view, the Greeks will view women the same way, minus Sparta. Sparta is very progressive when it comes to women and gender equality. So we'll talk about that down the road. However, understand it's going to become a much more male hierarchical society here. All right, and then we go into timelines and calendars. We're starting to actually write down when the seasons come. We're actually starting to write down when time frames happen. If you look at the very famous Mayan calendars that we all worry with the end of the world, they were definitive dates and times. And we're looking at, we're on a straight line timeline, a much more male-centric idea where things have to happen in a linear way. Our calendars today are based around religion. It gets away from just the idea of seasonal and circle of life mentality. All right, and then you're going to start to see socioeconomic inequality in the hunting-gathering community. Everybody was working for each other. When we get into this now new idea of Neolithic and agriculture, you have wealth and you have poverty, and that's going to be a big change. Those who are more wealthy are going to rise to the top, and then those who are poor are going to fall to the bottom, and you're going to start to see a hierarchy of those inequality, and it's going to kind of transcend itself throughout all of ancient history, even into modern history, even into today. All right, big thing, make sure you highlight this and underline this, the 5 characteristics of an advanced civilization. Okay, the first one is advanced cities. Once you are established as an advanced culture, civilization, you're going to have cities that define who you are. Look at our own country, places like New York, Washington, D.C., Boston, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Los Angeles, Chicago, Dallas, I can go on and on and on. They are very advanced cities where you get most of the modern ideas, and there's a lot of stuff. I hate to use that word, but stuff really going on in those cities. You'll see that in Mesopotamia with Ur and Uruk. You'll see that around Alexandria, the cities of Athens and Sparta, Rome. Obviously, these are going to really show what's characteristic of the advanced city. All right, you're going to get specialized workers now that they're not just hunting and gathering anymore. You have people actually doing work that is specific. Architects, engineers, farmers, blacksmiths, silversmiths, goldsmiths, people who are set in a trade, scribes, whatever the case may be. Everybody's going to have a specific job that they can do, which makes the civilization advance even further. Complex institutions. These are your religions, these are your governments, these are your economic systems. Each will rise in a different way, and we'll talk about that as we go along, but understand that those are the complex institutions which will be established in an advanced civilization. Okay, record keeping. The idea of writing something down. It gets away from the oral history of the Paleolithic era into more of a Neolithic, and we'll talk about here in a second the different types of writing that were done in different ancient civilizations. But record keeping becomes huge, is how we know how they lived and how they worked and how their civilization advanced. And then advanced technologies. Obviously, it's going to focus on architecture. You look at the pyramids. How were the pyramids built in Egypt? All right, you look at the Great Wall of China that was started in the ancient Chinese civilization. You look at the different types of weaponry that was used by the Greeks and the Romans. These are all advanced technologies that are going to come out of these advanced civilizations because they're able to settle down, become a little bit more stagnant, become somewhat better educated, but of course that fits in the social inequalities as well. Alright, so the biggest advance of technology is the creation of language, both oral and written. We know the oral language is there. There are many versions of oral language. When it comes to written language, it becomes very, very important. For example, you have cuneiform in Mesopotamia, this wedge-shaped writing where they take a wet tablet and will inscribe symbols into it that represent phrases or ideas. That's going to happen in Mesopotamia. The big part of that is going to be in Babylon with the Hammurabi's Code, the 282 codes that were actually written down and people to see. Hieroglyphics in Egypt, symbols representing more specific letters and sounds. It's more of a phonetic alphabet. Okay, what they'll find with the Rosetta Stone is that the Greeks and the Egyptians had connection. They're able to transcribe the hieroglyphics through the Greek and actually come up with what the language meant. All right, alphabets. The Phoenicians and the Chinese. Now we know the Chinese, it's a symbolic alphabet, however, it's still an alphabet. The Phoenician alphabet, which is very similar to the Greek alphabet, also very similar to the Arabic alphabet, will turn into what we know as our modern alphabet today that we use. All right, and then symbols, the Mesoamericans, the Asian civilizations, and the Indus Valley. Now, with the Mesoamericans and the Asian civilizations, we were able to actually figure out what they were saying. With the Indus Valley, we were not. Okay, we don't have any kind of translation of that language, so we are losing a lot of the history there. But with the other two, we definitely know what's going on. Okay, and that's where we'll stop for the first one.